Well. 1 day of the Invitational somehow in the books. I don't know how either one of us are currently awake at this moment in time, given how early we had to get up to watch some of these games, but we're here. The Invitational is upon us, and the first day absolutely did not disappoint. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 6th Invitational Post Show. I'm Jacob. He is Jesse. We are the North American League analyst duo. Our good friend Veli at the moment is not with us, though he might be at some other point later in this week. We do want to thank you very much for joining us for the very first thing that we wanted to do for invitational content. Jesse, regale the people with what you've been doing on your end real quick before we dive into what this is going to be.
So over the last 13 hours, Jacob, I've been live at twitch.tv/JessieJChick. I was talking with Joe Bro throughout the entire thing. Yeah, it's been a good one. You know, we've been watching the B stream. I've been told that you were watching the A stream.
I was, yeah.
So that's convenient. We've just been watching the games, breaking them all down. Joe Bro was super insightful, and so we were just watching that together and basically breaking down, really getting analytical. Saw some things we liked, saw a lot of things we didn't like. Got to pick apart some European teams, and it was a good day.
Yeah, and I said at the very beginning of the whole endeavor, I was like, I have no idea how you're going to stomach doing like a 12 to 13 hour stream and you're going to be like talking the whole time. And like, I didn't know if you were going to be so dead. Like I woke up like at the same time you did, because we're in the same time zone for those who don't know.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was going to be possible to like go through the whole thing. I ended up, there was one game, admittedly, that you're going to know that I took a nap during, because I wasn't able to stay up for like the whole thing, and I needed like an hour to just like recharge in like the middle of the whole day.
Damn,
but yeah,
grinder.
so I was in a watch party with a lot of people who were in Challenge League. A couple of our friends, Lynx and Chowderhead and Crow and Drew Spark from SSG. A whole bunch of people were all in there kind of at the same time. We were all watching. Some of it was comedy, some of it was actual review. We were kind of just breaking things down and whatnot. However, let's go over exactly what this is going to be. We wanted to do something that was a recap for people who maybe weren't able to catch all of the streams, or they couldn't catch every single game. And they also wanted something that was a little bit more than just going to Twitter or to Wikipedia to like catch the results. And being two guys who are not in Paris or aren't working invitationally or the invitational remotely, we still wanted to contribute and we still wanted to do something content-wise. So we came up with the idea for a post show. It's mostly going to be review. So if you look at the ticker or the bar down below, you see all of the results through the day. Apologies for spoilers for those of you who have not been able to catch anything, but obviously the reason you're here is so that you can catch up on everything. So all the results are down below. And we are going to go through like every game one by one. We obviously both did cover one stream, so there's plenty of stuff that we can go over. I've got pages of notes. I'm sure you've got pages and notes to go over yourself.
Yes, sir.
A couple of things right off the top, though. First thing, this is not anything sponsored by Ubi or by Faceit. This is something that we wanted to produce independently because being in a position where we can still contribute something as something we really like, we just didn't really know what it was going to look like. This is something that we are doing by ourselves. There isn't any red tape or anything, which means we can theoretically say whatever we want. Like, it's not the NAL, so we can be brash, we can be really respectful, we can hype somebody up to the moon, or we can curse. Like, this is free reign for us to kind of do whatever.
Right.
And it's also not super structured. Like, we're going to go through like recaps and everything, and we have a couple of other screens that we'll get to in a second, but there's not like a crazy outline that we're going to end up going over. It's literally just what happened during the course of the day, and then we just kind of go from there. So
yeah, I mean, it should be a good time. I think the casual aspect of it should be good. I'm gonna call some teams bad, and that's my favorite thing to do. And so that's what we're gonna do today.
We don't do it often on the NAL because it's like we have to like get to every single point and like be like more politically correct on those streams. Not to say that we won't be the same people here, I mean, but we're also not restricted or anything.
Yeah,
because we don't need to be.
Yeah.
So, and also another thing to note: graphics. Candor R6, the wonderful former card czar of Rainbow Six Siege, helped put together what you are seeing, the background, most of the graphics that you see, all of the webcam frames, everything. And our good friend Ferme has gone and converted all of that into a vMix graphics package that now has full production, as you see. So we're going to have a couple of other elements that go through as the stream goes on, but do please go and thank both of them for their hard work on this, because they killed it, and they had zero reason to. I was talking to Cantor only a couple of days ago while we were working on stuff for Challenger League over the weekend, and he was like, can I help with the podcast? I was like, yes. And then 2 days later, we're here, and it completely blew all my expectations out of the water. So massive thanks to both of them for managing to get all of this stuff wrangled together. And the last thing I want to mention is that we have no delay on the stream, which means we see chat exactly live as it is happening. And if you want to join the conversation, there's going to be a big, massive Q&A section all the way at like the very end of the show when we're done. But if you want to jump in on the conversation live, we will be reading stuff. I see Benny saying I suck, which is funny considering he's literally 75 years old and balding. So, hi, Benny, suck it. This is going on YouTube, and there's nothing that you can do to stop it. So. Yeah,
there's some great chatters. We miss Pengu. Yeah, me too. Yeah. G2 lost 3 times. They sure did. That was pretty comical.
Why is Jesse so cute? That's Carter.
I'm here for Jesse's cat. Cat is well, we might have a rare occurrence of other cat. Wait, one sec. Thank you.
Wait, are there 2? Oh, yeah.
Nobody would know this, but
the one request I did make of Ferme was if we could get like a nameplate for Spawny. But this is other
Malma.
cat?
Yeah, this is Masmus. She's less cuddly, but my girlfriend has decided to drop her on us, so I think she wants down. She's not. Oh, she might stay for a bit, but she won't be in camera access. Cat jams in the chat, please. Thank you very much.
Yes, can we get a lot of cat jam spam for day number 1? All right, so how about we jump into some of what day 1 had to offer for the Invitational? Let's jump to standings real quick. And this is one of Ferme's babies on stream. He was super, super happy about this. Day number 1. And I think it's pretty safe to say there's some things on here that we were both like, yeah, that's kind of how we thought the day was going to go. And then other stuff like, oh, Empire's undefeated. How the hell did that happen?
Yep, I think Empire have got to be the big shock. I mean, this team was struggling all throughout the EUL season, at least for the first stage. And, coming into groups, like sometimes you think, okay, well, we're going from online to LAN, we're going from best of 1s to best of 3s. That's what happens for some SIs. But this was kind of just going from, best of 1 round robin into best of 1 round robin. I didn't think that there would be anything to cause major differences between sort of the regular season and the group stage, but something clearly has clicked for Empire, and I think we'll get into that a little bit more later. But really was impressed by their play today. They've really stepped it up, and to all the people who had them going out last, might want to rethink those predictions.
I think I accidentally No, actually, my predictions for SiegeGG and for my own video were different. I said for SiegeGG, it would be Empire going out, but then for my video, I corrected myself and said it would be CAG, and I'm very, very happy that I said it would be CAG. Yeah, it just means my SiegeGG predictions are ruined, which is always a pain. But Empire, undefeated on the day. They're just better on land, man. I was really excited for their first game, which was against Liquid, which we'll get into in just a hot second here. But I had zero expectation they were going to shoot that high when they did. I also forgot that DarkZero is the only North American team that is in this group, and that the other 4 are in the other one. Like I was going, we're seeing a lot of Brazil today. Why aren't we seeing enough NA? Wait a second, and it's because DZ is the only one here. Yeah. Which I think is probably a detriment to them, only because they don't have any other teams that they played at all in the North American League that they can go up against for easy prep. So for them, it's probably the hardest because there's no interregional competition for them in this group at all, which sucks.
Yeah, I think it is it's a pretty difficult group, but the nice thing is that because there's 10 teams in this group, 9 out of 10, 90% of teams make it out of the group, and it should be perfectly safe, right? Like if you're in Group B, again, it's only one team getting eliminated, but that's 1 out of 8. So your odds of making it farther into the bracket are actually kind of significantly better if you're in Group A. Not crazy, but you do inherently have a higher chance of making it out of groups if you're in Group A, just due to all of the teams that had to drop out because of the pandemic. So yeah, that's a bit of a silver lining. Some of those teams that currently are 0-3 are still going to make it out of groups, which is nice.
Yeah, though I think it's going to be interesting because the teams that are like 3-0 are already kind of shoo-ins for either upper bracket or like one of the better teams that will be in the lower bracket, like for Empire in their case especially. And then when we get to teams like CAG, you have such a hard slog now to get back out of. You have to win 3 games in a row just to make it back to 500. Like that's already going to be ridiculous to like, I don't know how you're going to do it, especially considering what we will go through for CAG in a little bit. Makes it seem like they are playing a completely different game than the rest of the group seems to be playing. So for them, it's going to be an insurmountable mountain to climb, it seems like. But I have faith in Empire now at this point, and I can safely say that after just the first day, and I was wrong to put them in lower bracket when I did, because oh my god, that was crazy.
Yeah, I think I also had them in lower bracket in my prediction tweet that I posted right before we went live, but I had them like kind of high. I had them like 4th last, so I'll take that. I think Empire was the shock; it shocked everybody, but yeah, it's good to see. You're always liking when you see teams that don't get much credit pop off like that.
Yeah, it's true. All right. We might as well go game by game, breakdown by breakdown. I did A, you did B, which meant that we started with Empire and Liquid, and they went to Clubhouse. Now, I thought this was kind of interesting because we had like all the standard bans. It was Thatcher, Hibana, Wamai, and Mira. So like the way that it all played out was very, very basic. But this was a map that Empire simply had not gone to very much over the course of like the EUL. It was the one that they had. Like this was their bastion, the same way the Clubhouse was also SSG's bastion. This was the map that you simply did not take Empire to back in the day, especially like around Raleigh, when they were like at the peak of their own existence. But the way that this played out was kind of interesting. Liquid had a 3-3 half against them, which was weird because Empire seemed like they were coming out of the gate swinging. It was 3-1. Liquid brought it back to a 3-3. Empire had a really good attacking streak, which was matched by Liquid in the end, and then it all came down to the wire because it was a 4-7, and Liquid just kind of ran out of steam at the very or on half number 2. Dan got the opening pick of the 6th Invitational onto Sexy Kick, so congratulations to Dan. He was the first one to net a kill in this entire tournament, and then went killless for the entire rest of the half. And the nice. Everyone else on Empire just kind of picked it up. Dan didn't really have to do anything. It's pretty clear Empire on LAN is far better than Empire online because this team was in the conversation for dead last out of EUL for the stage. For the beginning of the 2021 season, they were looking really bad, and there was, especially on my end, concern that they'd be able to do anything in an offline setting, but they did, and this is the first time that we've seen Empire compete in a LAN environment since SI of last year, and they went out in groups there, but now they've made a roster change. This is always his first international LAN, and the entire team slayed out. It was awesome.
Yeah, and
for Empire's sake, it was also... Sorry, go ahead. You do yours.
No, keep going.
I was just, I have so many points to get through. I'm just like, I don't know like how we're supposed to end this up.
Right. Okay. Well,
yeah.
I do think I was watching the B stream with Joe, right? And one thing that he mentioned as soon as that game started, he saw the bans, and man has incredible spreadsheets. I just want to say, holy crap. Dude had like numbers for days. It doesn't surprise me. And he looked at the map banning phase, and right before it even started, he said, "Oh, Liquid just trolled this map ban phase. They should not have taken Empire to this map."
Did he really say it like that?
Yeah, he said this was a troll from Liquid. They should not have gone here. And I think that proved to be pretty correct. With even the future games from Team Empire, they really did seem like they were winning a lot on Clubhouse. Now, again, I didn't watch that game, so I don't know if Liquid actually did struggle on that map. But from the outset, it did seem like the advantage was towards Empire, just based on the map ban phase.
Yeah, they had I went back and checked the CGG stats on it. They had more bans than plays. Like they banned it more than they played it over the course of the past 3 months. And they, believe it or not, only had a 25% win rate on it. So they played it 4 times in that 3 month span, because that's just what like CGG defaults us to for our stats lookup, and I didn't change the time. But 4 plays, 1 win, and they decided that this was the map that they wanted to head to, and they dominated. And it was completely out of the water. Liquid were only able to get 1 entire round on defense and kind of shocked everybody. And the cool part about this is where we saw Joystick kind of reemerge a little bit, because I think the main Twitter account said that he was MVP on the day for like every game combined, every team combined. He was fragging and doing really well. But a 1.38 for his own right, 10-6. 3-0 on entry. Just like the stats just kind of tell the story. Look at that.
Yeah,
Good freaking
and
grave.
I mean, it's got to be Joystick as like the focal point. Now, I don't know. It's been a long time since Joystick has been like in contention for the best player in North America or in Europe, right? I mean, it's been a while, but back in the day, back at Raleigh at Empire's like initial peak when they really first started getting all that hype, you know, he was the cyborg, you know, he was the one that everybody was hyping up and was the one that was supposed to be popping off and getting those frags. So to see him come back to form for this 6th Invitational, I think it was a really good sign. This was not his only good performance in the day. Let's get that straight. So still have yet to see if this is going to continue throughout the rest of the 6th Invitational, but good start. Nobody will complain about that.
I'm gonna see if I can't go back and find a clip because it was quite the way to try to stop myself from screaming at 4 a.m. The clip in question, if I can locate it, is the round that ended up winning all of Clubhouse, and it's Empire on a gym defense, and Joystick is playing Frost, and just whips like 180 onto a window. Outside Jacuzzi breach, he finds a 4K and wins them the round when like the casters are like, yeah, look what seems like they're picking up steam, and we're just like, nah, Joystick's back in the lobby. Let me see if I can go and find it real quick, and then I will pop it up on the SRT so that you guys can see it.
Yeah,
wherever the hell it is. I
mean, wow, like seriously, for Empire, like the story is great. For Liquid as well, I don't know if this is like a sign of a doom for them, like I think some people might have been considering at the very beginning of the day, right? All 3 of Liquid's games were on A stream, but they managed to bounce back, a couple of wins against FaZe and C9, so hopefully this was just sort of a rocky start for them, and again, kind of trolling in that map amp phase to go against Team Empire. But I still think that Team Liquid should be considered one of the favorites to top out the entire group, just because you know how well they did in LATAM and the history of those players.
All right, I think I got the clip from it. If you want to hop to it, I'm not going to have audio on for it, but I do just want everyone to see like how ridiculous this went. Are we good? I think we're good. One sec. If he wants to pop back to the SRT, I do have it pulled up. All right, this is the clip in question. The reason I have it muted is because it's the Wait, do we want the Japanese caster audio? Because I can turn that on. Do we want that?
Yeah, dude, let's go.
All right, I'll turn it up a little bit.
Let's hear it. All right, I don't think they can hear it.
That 180 right there.
Goodbye, Palu. Nice seeing ya. That was insane. And then this is the 6-4. They're going to win this one out. Takes back man advantage, too. That's such an important pick to be able to swing this. Kill the Ashe. Your utility stays up in sight. Really, really nice. And then the rat spot, too. Of course.
Just claps the window, man.
That's so nice. That's awesome. All right. What a player, you know, and especially on Frost too. I feel like this is an operator that we're seeing so much more of these days, and it's a joy just because it's an operator that was so bad for so long, and I guess all she needed was a shotgun and a shield to be viable, because this gun was always good. It continues to be good, and yeah, the power of the Frost, man. It's a good sight.
Yeah,
it's a good play. You can't hate on it.
All right. We got a whole bunch more of these games to get through. You want to do yours?
Yeah, let's blast through them.
Let's do it.
We had our first game, Cloud9 versus Cloud9 versus Team 1. This was one where I wasn't too excited for either of these teams, to be honest with you. I was a little bit worried that perhaps Cloud9's playstyle would upset Team 1, even if Team 1 might be the more consistent team. But it started off very good for Team 1. They got the first 5 rounds in a row. Cloud9 really couldn't attack on Villa. They were struggling time and time again to actually, make any plays happen. The roam was better for Team 1. Cloud9 really couldn't clear. They really got punished anytime they tried to make a play. Round 6, they finally turned it on, and we saw Cloud9 go for a coordinated take. They actually pushed together. It was really good to see, refreshing, and they swapped out a defense and started to bring it back. Cloud9 got all 4 rounds of theirs in a row. So the first attacking round, or the last attacking round, and the 3 first defending rounds, they did a full cycle on all the sites. But the thing that really impressed me was not the almost perfect defense from Team One. It was actually the adaptation from Team One. You know, when they moved on to that 10th and 11th round, it was the same holds from Cloud9. They ran it back, of course, and tried to make the same thing work twice. And Team One just really did punish it well. They brought in the Buck. Alamau decided to shift over to that operator. That's sort of a staple op as we've seen from him in the last couple of months in the LATAM scene, and then also today he played a lot of the Buck and he really rocks it. I mean, one of the big issues they were struggling with was Clash instead of AVG. Buck and below that Clash instantly countered, right? There's no place for the Clash to play. Similarly, when they're on defending trophy statuary and they're extending themselves into AVG, Buck below and really just destroy that whole setup. So I was really impressed by how Team One took that. I feel like Team One are one of like the kind of the mold breakers of LATAM, right? They're like, you think of LATAM as a fast, aggressive region, and according to the stats from Jobro, Team One are actually the slowest team in all of LATAM, and that really, I mean, that shows in this game.
That's fair, though. I wonder if that means it's like, oh, if it's a good thing or a bad thing if T1 is like is going against the grain, so to speak. Hey, Spawny.
Yeah, she's back. She's back.
Hey. So I guess it's more like because they don't conform to the same mold as the rest of LATAM, is that going to lead to more success for them? They had a good record on the day overall, so I would assume that, something to their formula works because it's not what you expect from Brazilian teams kind of outright, but still, that's a cool thing to see. One thing I do want to ask, though, I was coming... I had both streams open. I was obviously focusing more on A, but I had B open at the same time.
Right.
Cloud9 just simply didn't seem like they were hitting shots for the first, 4 or 5 rounds or something. They were getting outpaced, outgunned. They seemed like the positioning was appropriate, but gunplay was so sloppy, and they just didn't. They couldn't do anything. And I was like, "Is this really what is going to happen to APAC teams at SI?" But they did seem like they got a little bit better.
I think in the very first half when Cloud9 were attacking and Team One were defending, right? You expect in that matchup, Team One will be the more structured teams. Maybe their overall setups will go well, but Cloud9 will beat them on the gun skill front, and it'll balance out. And Team One were beating them on the overarching holds, and I think that was the primary reason they were winning the rounds. Team One was also beating them on the frag department. It was kind of supplementary. I think if Cloud9 were fragging better, it still wouldn't have been enough to beat out Team One's holds. Yeah. But they were also losing in that front, which is first get that underway because that's sort of what you're known for, and then come back and try to work on your strategies and beat them that way. But it was a rough start for Cloud9. I think they'll get better, but you know what? Not a good start for their match against Team One.
Yeah, all right. They did have a better day against CAG, but ultimately having a good day against CAG doesn't really mean much when it's CAG, and we'll get into that in a hot second. So, the second game that I had was Liquid FaZe. We went to Cons. This is the first time that we saw 2 teams that were in the same region go up against one another. I think it's pretty safe to say that when you have a regional competition, it means you don't have to prep nearly as much. You're very used to how this team operates already. You're going to have a stronger semblance of what they're going to do. When it came to picking the map, though, this is where I think FaZe lost out simply in the ban phase, because they had a couple of options. First, they were the team that went for Consulate. That's simply not a map that they played. They usually permaban it. They had 2 plays, 7 bans, 5 bans against. They never go to cons if they can help it over the past 3 to 4 months or so. They went for Consulate over Chalet, which they have a considerably better record on, and Team Liquid usually avoids. So they opt for what they already know is going to be a very strong map for Liquid, and surprise, surprise, it's a 7-3. So I'm not going to say that Liquid did not come prepared. There were some very good plays individually, but you're going to a map that already has an advantage heavily favoring your opponent, and you didn't show anything substantial. If anything, Liquid can now, Liquid might be a little bit concerned that they showed too much on a Consulate map. The rest of their opponents can look at that and go, oh yeah, if we take them to Consulate, we have to break down this and this and this. But I did think it was kind of a poor choice for FaZe because they had Chalet. It was right there. It was another option, but they simply did not go for it. But this one was kind of interesting because of the way FaZe were trying to combat it. I want to say on almost all of their defense rounds, they had a Doc present, and I think on 5 out of 6 of those rounds, they were running Doc Rook. They were running a double 3 armor Frenchie set. And also at different times had Oryx, but for Consulate that makes sense just because of the way the map plays. But I kept looking at that thinking, why? Like there's so many other things that you could bring, but still, why?
This is kind of how Latin America plays Consulate, Jacob, particularly on that top floor, maybe less so on other sites, but like this is something that I noticed a lot in my VOD reviews heading up to SI. It's like they bring their like guns with good sights, right? Like they like their scopes on Consulate, and it makes sense, right? Like let's say you're defending on CEO, garbage bomb site. You're not going to win that site unless you take some like ridiculous gunfights. So, you know, you bring your good sights and you say, we're just going to shoot at windows and hopefully we kill people. And so
guess so.
That's kind of the best way to hold it. And I kind of, you know what, I'm not here to hate on the French operators on Consulate, because I think that's a really hard map to hold. And sometimes you just got to bring out the guns, you know?
I guess so. And on the opposite side, I also thought, what was it? There were 2 players on Liquid who that map were also like had 16 combined kills between the 2 of them on one half, and there were 2 players that had I think about 2 kills. So there it was 2 players for Liquid were leading the way, and one of them was playing Nook like exquisitely. Yeah, it was Moringa and Paula had 16 kills in the first half between the 2 of them. It was ridiculous. And then Nook being played, obviously. Thank you for the freaking pronunciation correction. Unbelievable.
I wasn't even trying to like correct your pronunciation. I assume I get everything wrong by default.
No, there's like I think Pengu at one point when Nook came out was like, there's a pronunciation for Danish people and then there's a pronunciation for others like internationally, which is cool. You can also say it this way, and I went sweet, and then I forgot which one was which. So at this point I even forget. Yeah, but just the fact that Liquid wins on Consulate a lot, and it was a 5-1 half, and FaZe just couldn't. They only got 2 more rounds on their own second half. They just couldn't claw things back. I thought that was a poor map choice for FaZe.
Yeah, I do like as well, because that was one of the few games that Liquid actually lost in the regular season. They lost 3 games in the regular season. They lost MIBR, Black Dragons, and FaZe Clan. So I thought that maybe FaZe Clan would be able to have the edge over Liquid, but no, Liquid really did outplay them, and that's good to see, especially from a team that we expect to be one of the favorites for the tournament.
Yeah, fair. And then you had another run-in with Team 1, but it was against the old world champs. How'd that go?
So the match between Team 1 and Throw 2 was a fantastic one. They really both did show up. G2 started 4-0. They looked really good on their attacks. It was Chalet, and Chalet was attacker-sided, which is good because I think for high-level teams, Chalet is very attacker-sided. For teams that struggle, I think that it becomes more defender-sided, and I think that both these teams are good at Chalet. Team 1, we had a lot of VODs on that to look back on. G2 less so, but definitely, I thought that both teams were strong here. So they started 4 in a row. Team 1 were pretty insistent on going to Wine and Snowmobile, which never really looked very good. But G2 did a great job isolating the roams. They went to it twice. They lost it both times. Whatever.
Okay. I know that had a 1-round win rate in North America, so I didn't know if it was different cross region, but like that's still ridiculous that they went to it that many times. It's
pretty bad in other regions. It's better than it is in North America, but again, I think that's just sort of like goes back to the level of play.
Okay.
And then like they ended up winning out. They ended up getting the 4-2 split. So Team 1 clawed it back a little bit. G2 changed up their takes, I think, in that second half, or not in the second half, but in rounds 5 and 6, and they really didn't need to. We swapped to the second split, and G2 got 2 more right back in a row. They won round 7, round 8. On their defensive half, they were up 6-2, and they looked really good. Team 1 were struggling with their utility clear. They had like some interesting setups, some interesting attacks, but they just couldn't pull them through. And then G2 literally threw that game away. Alamau started to pop off. Alamau had an ace in round number 11. Even before that, there were some rounds where Alamau totally stole it away from them. And you could see it on like the faces of the teams. Like Team 1 were starting to get excited. They're starting to get hyped up. There's Alamau once again, a favorite of that Buck operator, and on attack, he was really rocking it. And they were starting to get hype, and like you could just see the mood on G2 go from like, okay, yeah, we're better than this team, we're beating them, to like, we're losing to this team, we should be better than them. And then like just total frustration, shutting down. Nobody could do anything. And you could see Shaz was just sitting in the corner like, like he wasn't happy at all.
Yeah, and then, that's the traditional Shaz scowl. Missed that, man.
We went to OT, and that was a 2-0 in overtime for Team 1. So really like G2 through that. That was 100% their game. They were playing better for the majority of it. Alamo got in their heads and they threw it away. That's one that's like so frustrating for G2, and I feel their pain on that one.
Yeah, as soon as they got to OT, everything just kind of like went out the window. Especially what they were up. They had match point. It was 6-5 for them, wasn't it? So they were literally 1 round
for
off.
them. No, it was 6-2 for them.
No, sorry,
Jacob.
my bad. 6-2. My
6-2.
bad.
Yeah. Yeah, they came back from a 6-2 and won at 8-6. That was the score.
They came back.
Bonkers,
What is that? Do the math in my head. That
Come on,
is
you got this.
8 rounds unanswered. That's 8 in a row.
That's 6 in a row. But good try. They got 8 overall, Jacob. Come on.
Very tight. Yes, yeah. It's been. I'm gonna let that one slide.
Okay.
My God.
Yeah. The rest of us won't.
Man, hey, everyone here is gonna be holding a whole bunch of bad mental games over our head just because of the amount of time we've spent awake at an ungodly hour to do this show for you because we love you anyway. Yeah.
Moving on.
Like that all day. Moving on. All right. DZ
FaZe. Yeah.
Yep, that came up for me, which was already going to be interesting because DarkZero simply don't play Chalet. Like, they did not play it ever.
Their
NA
first showing.
avoided it. They're in their first showing on Chalet, and it was probably the slowest start that you could have imagined. It was a 7-4. FaZe came off the backs of that really bad loss to Liquid in their previous matchup, then came into Chalet and fragged and did really, really well. But the problem was that even if FaZe Clan can be an aggressive team, DarkZero had most of the opening picks, I think, in this game, and especially through their first half, and converted on almost none of them. It was such a weird disparity between them finding that initial kill and then the rest of FaZe are attacking from all these other angles, and it means DarkZero can't really find a foothold, especially on an attacker-sided map. I thought it was kind of interesting, but it still meant that FaZe could work off of or shake off that initial man loss and still find a way to claw rounds back. It was really, really bad. They were simply getting outgunned. They were also kind of skipping the roam clear, were FaZe, because the idea behind facing DarkZero a lot of the time is you don't have to worry about that roam clear as much if DarkZero have a real weakness of just getting punched right in the teeth. If you skip the steps, sometimes it worked. And for FaZe Clan on their attack, because DarkZero were defending first on this game and their next game on Chalet, they were defending first both times, and FaZe Clan simply decided, oh, you're setting up a floor above site. You're setting up for kitchen by being upstairs in master and in office. That's fine. We're just going to go straight for kitchen. Screw your setup. All your utility. We need none of it. We're just going to go right in. This was DarkZero's permaban, and I thought they were going to have a better showing on it, but FaZe, again, showing why they should have gone Chalet against Liquid earlier. Yeah. They did a really, really good job of just shutting everything down, and I think the fact that they also were able to shake off the opening picks is a massive reason for them pulling the dub out. It was crazy.
And then correct me if I might be getting ahead of myself just looking at the stats page there, but was this the BLITZ? Was that this game or was that the next one?
Okay, so Blitz came out a lot.
Why,
he was used.
Jacob?
I was trying to figure it out too, because it did seem like when DarkZero were down, they wanted to find a way to match FaZe's aggression. So what they decided was, we're gonna whip out a Blitz. We're gonna put Mint back on his old calling card, so to speak. And a lot of it involved pushing from games. I think both times Blitz was played, one time it was successful, one time it wasn't. And both of them were pushing through games window, trying to get pressure onto first floor bomb sites. And the first time it happened, it was a complete failure. Mint was left in a 1v3, and the rest of his team simply couldn't use Blitz effectively. The second time it was used, he won. But by that point, it was already kind of too late, because I think by that point, FaZe was already on match point. It simply, they just got cooked. Like, I genuinely think that because they brought Blitz in that game, they were costing, because they could have done anything else, but they went with a Blitz pick and it simply didn't work. So
it's sad, because that's like Blitz's, or that's like Mint's whole thing, you know?
I know, yeah, I was ticked about that, dude.
That's what he's known for, and I feel like in recent times, you know, he has moved quite a bit away from that. We don't really see any shield play in North America, but if we do, you know, it's usually Mint, and it's usually DarkZero trying to rock those shields. Maybe we're just not a shield region, Jacob. Maybe we're just a region that like our guns too much.
To be fair, I don't really know if any region is technically a shield region based on how another team played, which we will touch on. But
we'll
still,
get to that one.
Yeah,
fair enough.
What'd you have next?
Then I had G2 versus Furia, and this was on Consulate once again. We had a lot of Consulate today.
Yeah.
And it was very back and forth. Furia were a team that I wasn't super sure about. I didn't really know what to really think of Furia going into it. But I did know G2, and I know I didn't like a lot of what I saw from G2 on Consulate. So I was favoring Furia a little bit going into this one. And it went OT. It was a really long game. G2 definitely felt like they were skipping steps, and this is something we noticed from them. Even back in the regular season of the EUL, G2 didn't want to go for full clears. One thing that Joe talked about a lot when we were on stream together was he talked about how G2 weren't really earning their plants. They weren't going up and clearing and getting that man control and taking that top floor, and they were more so just like they'd open the garage. They would walk in the garage and they would get that plant down, or they would try. They often would fail. They went for a fun little glass.
They just go for really simple steps, yeah.
Yeah, they went for a fun little glass push. We saw a glass from G2.
Okay.
They had a glass outside, and then there was nobody yellow, so somebody flanked yellow and got 3 kills. Nobody turned to look at him the whole time. There were some real bad rounds from G2 there. I remember I was like, Joe, he got to stand out there for a while before anybody called him. And Joe was like, he shot his entire clip, reloaded, brought out the pistol, and got 3 kills. Yeah, nobody looked at him. So that was something that was disappointing. And the biggest thing that stood out to me for this game, Furia were having so much fun during the entire game. They were laughing, even they lost that opening round.
Yeah, the mental was apparently really high for every LATAM team, I think, today, right? A lot of them just seemed very jovial and that they were really into it.
Yeah, Furia were having they were having fun, they were laughing, they were really happy with the result. And again, you go to G2 are having no fun. This is a team that has 0 fun allowed on their whole roster. Citizen had a great round. I think Citizen carried G2 in this game. He carried them 2 in overtime. Obviously, they couldn't win the overtime. Round 1, he had a 4K. Round 6, he had a 4K. Round 10, he had some really ridiculous big fights. So, yeah, if Citizen's not on this team, if Citizen's not having one of his best days, this is a much more lopsided game for Furia, because Citizen was the only good-looking player on G2 today.
I found a clip from the first round of overtime for me if we want to slap this bad boy up here in a sec.
Oh, yeah.
This apparently is kind of what you were talking about in terms of G2 falling apart. So what are we looking at? It's a 5v3.
Yeah.
I do have audio on this one, but I'll turn the volume down to about half for a minute so we don't blow people's ears out.
So this round, G2 have everything, right? They had the early picks. They got loads of plant denial. They got a C4. They got 2 yokais. I believe both are still up. They've got evil eyes. They have smoke canisters as well. 3 toxic babes there, right? So they should have no problem with this plant. And you can play the clip now if you want. And somehow Furious still get this plant down, right? The Evil Eyes get cleared out way ahead of time. The Yokais all get shot. And, you've got a C4 player, right? Your whole denial plan for Citizen is to maybe deny this with a C4. Citizen's on the moon, right? He's up in tier, the 3rd floor. He's not going to be able to stop this. Here's the Yokai.
Oh, no!
Gets shot right before he can actually, prevent that plant from happening. So it just feels like G2 have every advantage in this situation, right? They have the man count, they can go for trades.
Yep.
They have the utility, they can stop this plant, and none of it works, right? They have the players up above, they can go for flanks, they can shoot from below, or they can shoot from, the ceiling. I mean, they have every advantage, and they're just, they can't do it. And again, I feel like it's just, it's a problem with their mentality. It's a problem with the fact that, they're just not playing together, and they're just making mistakes that you don't expect a tier 1 team to make, right? And I think that is a lot to do with the mental.
They were relying on everything to happen on the Echo for this play in particular, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there's pipes, very, very small pipes. I don't think the Echo, the Yokai, I don't think it hit the ceiling. I don't think it had a ceiling to connect to. Because I don't think I ever saw it activate at ever. Am I crazy?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. I think it gets shot before it has a chance. I don't think it matters one way or the other.
It hits the ceiling and then just does nothing. I was just like, man. But I you know what? I guess maybe the fault there is you're putting all your faith in an Echo, and sometimes it just doesn't work.
Hey, you got 5 players alive, right? Why is it only an Echo? Where's your toxic babes? Where's your roaming player? You have a roaming presence right now. There's so much more that could have been done, and none of it was there.
Yeah, okay. Someone in chat mentioning the reticle would change if it hits the ceiling, and I was like, yeah, okay. you would know if it hit it. So I'm just like, if they really lost putting everything down on one Yokai and it just wasn't placed properly, that is the worst. That is the worst thing that you could have done. But
yeah,
what are you gonna do in that case? Yep. All right. So now we got to get to one of the teams that was ultimately, I thought, they were going to do really bad in groups, and ultimately they so far have done really bad in groups. We got to talk about Cyclops. Their first game was against DarkZero. DZ surprisingly went to Chalet 2 games in a row. First of all, you didn't see any of DarkZero on Chalet in the NAL, and all of a sudden you see them on the exact same map into back-to-back best-of-ones, but this one obviously went way better for them. I felt like they were correcting some of the mistakes that they made because it was a very slow start against FaZe, but against CAG, it was not quite the same scenario. And I do think that Cyclops also, for their own part, did take a really, really long time to get going. Gun skill didn't really seem as though it was on point.
Yeah.
This is where Anaton locked in the Monty, which was the op that he played the entire rest of the day, as far as I know. He, from what a couple of people were mentioning to me in our watch party, they mentioned that he was already a good gunner, but I don't know why you would want to take a good gunner away in replacement for a shield. I'm not 100% on that because obviously I don't watch enough APAC to know if that was like his strong suit or if that was his primary played up, but that is what he stuck on all of today, especially. Mint had even more blitz than he did against FaZe. Like, he played it more often, he was far more aggressive, and this is where it kind of seemed like this is what Mint was supposed to be doing. That was his most played up, as the stats do show. Smoke on defense, but he was going crazy. 1.24 with an 8 and 4 KD overall, and he had way more, I guess, presence over the course of that entire map because he was creating space. DZ was playing off him a little bit better than they were against FaZe because CAG simply weren't adjusting very well to DarkZero being an aggressive team, because they aren't. They're very, strategic. They're laid back. If DZ is getting aggressive, you're kind of doing something crazy, because the secret against DarkZero is to then be aggressive, and then when the rest of the round plays out, if you're able to punch a hole in the middle of their strategy, they don't know what to do. In this case, they had a much better adaptation to it, and I think they used blitz far more effectively. But the problem is you can only correct so many of those mistakes against FaZe. It wasn't like it was a direct correlation from them understanding what went wrong, because CAG is obviously a much different team. It just looked like a major winning DarkZero just smothered a team from APAC that in their first game of the day just got hit by a bus and didn't really have any way to correct for it. So
I will say, we did a lot of VOD reviewing of the APAC playoffs, and based on just how CAG, did in that tournament, they had a lot of games in the APAC playoffs. So I had a lot of notes on Cyclops actually coming into this tournament.
Yeah, what'd you have?
And Anaton on the Monty is super common. It's, I don't know if it's his most played op, but he's very good on it. I feel like Iagator and Anaton are like the duo, because Anaton will push in on Monty, get the intel, distract, and then Iagator will just run in on Ash and just like destroy everybody. We saw that a lot in the APAC playoffs, and it was very effective. Based on what I saw, again, in those VOD reviews, I had no doubt that Cyclops would be the weirdest team at Six Invitational. Maybe Makers, because I don't really know anything about that team. But in terms of the teams that I got a read on, this team is just like wild. They will run Glaz relatively often with a Monty on multiple different bomb sites on different maps. It's like not as common as the Monty, but it's like a pretty standard thing that they see in their arsenal. CAG are a strange team. They play a completely different style of Siege compared to every other team that I've seen. I think inherently, I think on paper it doesn't stack up against like the way that most people play this game, right? Particularly in North America, but also Europe and LATAM and most of APAC. But I think they have like surprise potential, right? And I think that sort of is why where a lot of their, where their success comes from. And that's why I actually thought they would do pretty well in this group stage. Obviously, so far they haven't delivered on that. But yeah, Cyclops are a team that can really upset and shock people. And I think the way they play the game isn't indicative to long-term success. I don't think there's any chance Cyclops win SI. But I think no Cyclops. I don't think Cyclops get last in this group. I think Cyclops absolutely have some upsets in them. I'd be shocked if Cyclops go 0-9 and don't get some big wins, especially over teams like G2 that I think can really struggle against like kind of weird aggressive plays that they don't expect,
Yeah, watch party sentiment among the guys I was with was definitely CAG are not going to win a single game in this group just because of how weird they're playing. It didn't seem like they were really keeping games close. In fact, if I'm looking at the games that they did play, the only one that really was close was against a regional opponent, and the other two games that they had were just blowouts from teams that are outside of APAC, which just doesn't spell good things for them. DZ obviously needed a win. They needed some way to bounce back, and they found a way to win on a map they'd never played before. So congrats to them for getting something under their belt, but ultimately that was just kind of CAG not being able to show up when push came to shove, in my opinion. So All right. This one, the next one that you've got is one that pained me
Really?
so much because I thought it was going to be faster. I thought BDS were going to be able to run Roughshod over Furia faster, but I was wrong. How'd it go?
Yeah, I think Furia had some solid rounds. I think definitely BDS were the better team. I think that probably a lot of this came from, we were on Cafe. Furia started defense, so they went 2-0 or 2-1, in the first 3 rounds. Fantasy hit some ridiculous shots to turn a 4v4 into a 4v1 when they were defending on bar, just playing for Pixel. He had some really nutty plays. But overall, like BDS definitely showed up and were the better team. I think BDS had some pretty simple takes, but like absolutely executed them flawlessly. And Furia, again, it was nice that they kept up the mentality, right? Like, despite losing this, Furia were having so much fun. Furia were having a good time. They were out there. They were, they were still like, they were like down. They were probably down, was that 1, 2, 3, 4? They were down like 5-2, and they were like, guys, remember when we beat G2? That was fucking awesome, right? Like that seemed like the vibes that were going on.
Okay.
So, Furia is not as good as BDS, but they held their own. I don't think Furia are a bad team. I don't think Furia are a good team. Furia, in my mind, are the very like middle of the road. They don't really stand out as having any highlight players necessarily. They don't stand out as having any big strengths or big weaknesses. They're okay. They're solid. They will beat, a lot of the lower level teams in here. They're not getting last, but they don't have a chance against, a team like BDS. And like I kind of said the same thing about CAG maybe, but Cyclops are a very different boat. Like Cyclops are not an average team. Furia are a pretty average team, and I think that's not a bad thing against them. Furia have a lot of room to grow. These are a lot of younger players. These are a lot of, the rookies and the newer players inside of Latin America. For a lot of them, last year was their first time in professional tier 1. So, solid game from Furia, but BDS is the better team, and this game wasn't too complicated in my mind.
Okay, cool. And that also wouldn't be the last time that BDS would end up going to Cafe, which I thought was also pretty interesting. But that game later, oh boy, we'll get to that in a hot minute.
I think
unless we want to do it now.
Well, no, we don't have to, but I do think that there were some hints about how BDS would play in their game against DarkZero. BDS rocked a lot of the clash, particularly on those bar defenses. And when they rocked against Furia, it went undefeated. When they rocked it against G2, it went undefeated. Or not G2. God, man, I've been up for a while. DarkZero, it went undefeated.
All right. Yep. Clash was a mainstay, but obviously later that's a little bit more of a heartbreak. Okay. This one was the one that I took a nap through. Full disclosure.
Damn it, Jacob.
I did go back and try to see if I couldn't find some notes on it, but obviously, it's a long day. There's a lot of games to cover. It was Cloud9 Cyclops, and the reason why I didn't really stay up for this one that much was because it was a regional matchup, and I did figure it was still going to be a Cloud9 win, because against CAG, that just kind of seems how that usually is in APAC. It's usually Cloud9 finding a win over the Japanese. In this case, that was also the case, but it's, again, you're facing a regional opponent, which means you don't have to do anything super crazy to get a leg up. It's not region versus region. You are fighting somebody who you've already played, and Cloud9 in this case just said, you know what, straight up screw the Monty. We are not allowing Anatson to jump back on that for any reason, so he was forced to do other things, and it meant Cyclops actually had a little bit of a better showing. It was only a 7-5 loss on cons, so just because of that familiarity, so I think Cloud9 were able to pull out what ended up being, I think, their only win on the day, because they didn't do anything against Liquid later. So for them, getting 1 point there is nice. CAG, I think if we have the stats up, in this case we do, they won a single entry fight over 12 rounds. Was for me the biggest problem. One entry fight. Every single other time, look at the entry stat, Gator had 1, everyone else has 0 over all 12 rounds played. Surprisingly, that turns into 5 rounds for Cyclops, because off of the back of that opening kill, they are obviously able to do something, but Cloud9 it played their game like they usually play, because they don't have to do anything crazy against an opponent that you play often. So that's just kind of the story of this game for me.
I think two big notes from me for CAG, and if we can keep the stats up, that would be great. First of all, it's kind of convenient this is the one you slept through, because we had a big break around this time, and I was like, okay, awesome, I'll go watch the A stream. They had a rehost pause going on for like 20 minutes. I didn't see a single round or a single kill happen. So,
good grief, yeah.
There
were a couple of longer hosts today too.
Yeah, I believe the issue was CAG. wanted a rehost, but they weren't legally allowed one, so they had to debate whether they were allowed one for like 20 minutes. And yeah, okay, whatever. But the big thing here, Cyclops, rough stats. Don't quote me on these, but I believe of the 19 games they played in stage 1, their opponents banned Ying against them 17 times. 17 Ying bans against KAG. That's off the top of my head. That might not be 100% right, but it's in that ballpark. DarkZero in their game against KAG banned the Ying. They followed suit. Cloud9 didn't. They banned that Monty. And I'm looking at these operators again. I didn't watch the game, but none of them were most played Ying. So I don't know what the hell's going on there. Doesn't seem like it. Maybe all of APAC was scared of Cloud9 or of Cyclops' Ying, and they never had to be because Cyclops wasn't actually a big fan of Ying anymore. Don't know what happened, but yeah, just wasn't a factor. I thought that'd be a big deal going in SI, and it doesn't seem like it mattered at all.
Yeah, if anyone in chat is able to figure out whether that was a thing that KAG pulled out of their back pocket or not, that'd be helpful. But the fact that it's showing up for no one in the stat line and there's no Monty to play. I mean, they kept things close with no Monty, no Ying, for what it seems like. Which ain't bad, but it still wasn't a W. So I wonder if that's just indicative of where their mindset was at. Genuinely have no idea.
It's almost like when you play operators that aren't garbage, you actually win rounds. I never would have thought. It's crazy.
Someone needs to tell KAG that, because they literally lost 2 games because they were doing nothing but hard sticking one guy on Monty and it didn't work out at all. We'll get to the other KAG game in a second, obviously, but still, that one was pain. What'd you have next?
Then I think I had BDS Empire. Yeah, this is a fun one. BDS Empire. It was a regional game. This is another one where it felt like Joystick looks like old Joystick. He started off with a huge 2K flank. BDS. This very first round, I want to break it down because BDS, we're going for a construction take. This is a CCTV cash hold on Clubhouse, and BDS they're pushing from construction. No flank drones, 3 drones in pockets. What are you doing, right? And definitely Empire exploited that. Joystick, another huge performance, and he had a good game in the first day or match of the day, but this game I think solidified him as the MVP of the day because really carried his team in this one. He looked like old Joystick. Maybe fewer flashy plays than the first game, but still had some really impactful moments. And I feel like it's just Empire feeling confident. This was their second time going to Clubhouse. There's Joystick, actually not the top player on his team by rating. That's kind of
Shepherd, let's go.
I thought he would be. But in either case, still very good rating, still going +9, 17 and 8. Nobody's saying that's a bad performance. It really does feel like old Empire. It feels like old Joystick, which is cool because we haven't seen this in a long time.
So long. I was gonna say.
Yeah, they definitely look confident against BDS. It feels like this was Clubhouse is a map that, again, Empire are good at. This is a pretty decent map. It's one that they actually play, and there aren't many maps that Empire actually play. But BDS are better at Clubhouse, at least throughout the regular season at Europe. And it's one of BDS' best map. Empire said, we don't care. We know we're better than you. And they proved it. It took them 15 rounds. That very final round was very close. There's excellent trading. And there was good time waste on the roam game from BDS, if I'm remembering correctly, in cash extension on a gym bedroom hold. Really good time waste, and I thought, this is it, BDS take it. No, they didn't.
Don't use that line against me, man. Don't.
It's catchy, dude. I use it a lot, actually.
Do you? Oh God. I was actually having a conversation with Hap the other day. It was either Hap or it was Dez. Sorry, if one of you is watching, my bad if I get it wrong. But I was talking to them and I was going, hey, you people need to understand, if BDS are in the grand final and someone doesn't say BDS takes it if they win, you have completely done the entire casting community a disservice if you don't use that line. And they're like, yeah, no, we agree. We're going to make sure.
Hey, man, it's catchy. It's their theme song now. BDS take it.
It's true. I will be very, very happy to scream it one of these days in a watch party if they end up going far in this tournament. But them losing to Empire doesn't help. It kind of makes me sad.
Not really. But with the way Empire looked, 15 rounds from BDS, that's not bad.
No, not bad. It's like them being on a hot streak, we didn't expect them to do really good today. Yeah, I'll still take that as a dub for what it's worth, as an unashamed, non-biased caster fanboy. All right.
Especially since that final round looked like it should have been BDS's. I just want to put that out there. Empire kind of stole that back.
All right. Was almost a draw, but we can't have that in the playoff or in the group stage or in the play. We can't have that at SI.
Thank God. Screw draws.
Never got down mine.
No.
All right. Last game for Cloud9 was Liquid. We went to Club.
Yeah.
Standard ban phase, everything for this map seemed like it was pretty normal. Cloud9 threw so many rounds. I want to state that very, very clearly. This was like, I can't come up with a pun that incorporates throw and Cloud9 in the same sentence, but it was scrappy and it was bad. 6-0 defensive half from Liquid. I am not kidding about that. Now, you obviously see the scoreline saying 4-7. Yes, it meant that the only time there was a attacking round one came after Cloud9. We're mounting a comeback and made things 6-4, which means that for Liquid, it was also kind of shaky, but still, the fact that we went to half number 2 on a 6-0 advantage for Team Liquid says a lot. There was a 1v4 that Paula managed to get because Cloud9 was doing dumb shit. Nesk won a clutch with an impact nade from below. It was a 1v1 situation. They're on church. They're defending. Diffuser's in the back right corner of Armory. There's an ace upstairs on so little HP while Mai's trying to figure out where he is, and he just wings an impact nade, downs him. He has no idea. He sticks the plant. And I remember watching that thinking there is literally no way that this is going to be lost. Like Cloud9 have a round in the bag. He just whips a Pokeball 1 floor upstairs, and that's the end of it.
Oh, no.
It's so... I had no idea how... And, like, mental from that point from C9 is utterly chalked, because you know you have a round up. There's a way that you can claw something back and maybe get some half or some rounds on your own attack, and there's nothing. It stalls out completely. Luckily... In MV Taylor was the player who got Pokeballed. He managed to get his own impact nade kill when they were defending on church a little bit later, so he did kind of get some revenge, more or less, but it didn't end up winning, or it wasn't the reason for why they won the round. I still thought that he got revenge, and it was funny. But at least in this game, that 4-round comeback for me is a little bit worrisome, because it meant that not only were C9 able to kind of correct their mental state, but they also surged back and were within 2 rounds of forcing OT. So for Liquid, I do call things very shaky, because that's not the kind of performance you need. You need one more round to lock things out, yet you allow your opponent to get some more of that man advantage, or it's like you're catching up in a scenario where you literally only need one more round to win. That's problematic. Obviously, you have, I'd say, a couple round buffer. If like your opponent were to win 1 or 2, then it's probably not a big deal, because again, you're on match point. You only need 1. Nesk is doing really good. Paulo's doing really good. Everyone on that team is kind of gelling. Like Sexy Cake and Moringa don't have to do a whole lot, but you still allow Cloud9 to do something. And I don't know if that means that there's a weakness necessarily that can be exploited by other teams as Liquid goes through the group stage and into the playoffs, but it is concerning just because it was 4 rounds in a row, and that's not the kind of performance you need when you literally only need 1 to lock out a whole map. So I was concerned.
I'm not too happy with the fact that Liquid played Clubhouse twice and got 2 rounds across both games on Clubhouse. I think that's a pretty big red flag. Not only because you might just write that off, right? Oh, maybe they're just not a Clubhouse team, Jesse. Right? They're not a Clubhouse team. Okay, it's best of 1. That's not an excuse in a group stage for 6 Invitational, right? If your map pool is so garbage that you have to go to a map that you're not strong on in a best of 1 for the 6 Invitational, I mean. If you're a team that I don't expect to do well, fine, right? Like, that's maybe acceptable. But Team Liquid is a team that I went into this tournament expecting them to be in the grand finals, right? Like, Team Liquid's a team that I expect to do very well this tournament. And that's just not enough for me. I want to see them be a little bit more confident on the maps they're going to. The bans were defender-sided, whatever. They played against some good teams, sure, I get it. But I really don't like that Liquid struggled so much attacking on a map that seemingly was their favorite map of the day. You've got 3 bans. Yep. Now you've got to use it on, presumably, you've got to use it on Consulate for the next couple of days in these group stages, unless you can fix your mistakes. But that just doesn't make me too happy as somebody who thinks that Team Liquid can do really well in this tournament. We're 1 day in, it's shakes, whatever, but something to watch out for in future games, I think, for sure.
Yeah, and at this point, it also means that that's Liquid's last game. They end the day on 2-1. I think their win against FaZe, really, really good. Their win against Cloud9, a little bit more concerning, but the fact that they still ended 2-1, for a team that I had as my favorite LATAM team coming into the tournament, I think for them overall is just a really positive sign of things to come for them for the rest of the group. So, yeah,
I agree. And then past that one, we got one versus Empire. Joystick, dude. How many times do I have to say it? Again, he was crazy. His roams were insane. On defense, particularly, he looked really, really good. Pushing from Freezer on some of those Laundry defenses. In fact, the way he played around Freezer on Laundry was super impressive. The very first round, they droned, or like they were trying to push Laundry, right? They were pressuring that issue. They came Freezer stairs. They sit outside of Freezer stairs. Joystick runs up Freezer stairs, goes into like the corner. It's like a barricaded door, right?
Okay.
Goes into like the corner at the top of the Freezer stairs. They drone right past him. They break down the barricade. They walk on in, and yeah, Joystick just slams them in the back because they, didn't flick their drone to the left a little tiny bit. And there was only like a brief moment where they didn't either have eyes down that hallway or have a drone down that hallway. And there we go, Joystick 1.35. Jeez, dude. 14 and 9. I mean, I don't have to read numbers off the screen for you guys. That was a really impressive one. And for Team 1, again, it was okay. They got 1 attacking round, and then they got 3 defensive rounds. Those were the first 3 rounds. It's Oregon. You should be getting 3 defensive rounds, more or less. So I thought that a lot of that was kind of the map, the most defender-sided map that we have. The bans were relatively defender-sided. There were some good defensive ops taken off the board as well, but there were some really strong attackers taken away from both teams. So I do think Team 1 generally looked a little off in this game. I think it was their worst game that we saw. I believe I watched all 3 Team 1 games.
Worse than their second one, which was I'm trying to remember which one they had from before.
That was G2. That was
G2,
Throw 2.
yeah.
That was Throw 2. Alamau at least looked really, really good there, and the rest of the team kind of kept pace. This one,
okay,
their attacks just didn't really impress me at all, and their defenses, they were fine. For Oregon, I expect them to have good defenses, but yeah, some cool aggression, absolutely. I think particularly on Team 1, the way that they worked to deny drones was pretty cool. They didn't really rock any Mute Mozzie or anything like that, but they would kind of hide somebody in a rat corner, and they'd have somebody else just constantly shooting drones to support that. And so that was something that was kind of cool. There were some aggressive strategies that worked well for Team 1. But overall, Empire, another really strong map from them. And good, because I was worried Empire were only a clubhouse team, right? I was worried that we were looking at this team and we were saying, okay, well...
reasonable concern, yeah.
Yeah, they're a team that did really poorly throughout most of the season. They come into this tournament, they play the same map twice in a row, they look really good, so... are they actually better, or is it just the map? And Oregon proved to me Empire are actually better. This is a team that is a real threat for winning this tournament, and they're the real deal. It's exciting, honestly.
I think I got a clip. I want to say this is the round that Empire won on, if I'm not mistaken, because this was Dan trying to do some crazy stuff. It's everything at this point, I think, is so let's see how this one ended up shaking. Dan wins this ultimately.
Yes, he's so this is a kind of a nice flick from Alamau, and then they put themselves into the 1v1, and this one goes for a little while. They gotta play Ring Around the Rosie. I'm trying to remember. That's a Toxic Babe on the corner of the wall. Alamau could have tried to pick it up and play it. Chose to just go for the gunfights. Yeah, and this one, it really does.
Oh, come on!
Time.
He cuts
nice
again from Harry Potter. What the heck, man?
Yeah, nice
really?
Nice little peek from Dan to win that 1v1. There was really good nading and coordination to actually get Pillar from Dan and from the rest of the team on Empire there. So I think that the early part of that round was where Empire won it, but nice way to finish it off for sure.
Yep, a little bit of flair, and I didn't think he'd be able to just cut straight back in and look at bunker as fast as he did. So good on the boy. Okay, I had 2 more. This is the last Cyclops game, and this is probably where it was the single most confusing thing that Cyclops brought. You talked a little bit about how they played in APAC, and they brought a whole bunch of operators that we in North America would consider off meta, considerably. We're trying to figure out what they're playing. I was talking with our good friend DrewSpark.ssg, the analyst who stepped in while Luke was playing, and he made the comment, "I don't know what meta we're in." I legitimately don't know what meta. Fury, if were God. They saw Anakin bringing a Monty. They saw a Glaz get brought out.
There it is.
And they brought a Clash to counter the Monty, which I thought was just ridiculous. And that's also in the same round that a Glaz is being played. And it simply looked like they were playing a completely different game, not even just Siege. Somewhere the lines completely blurred, and it was they didn't really even have confidence in them in what they were bringing to this game. The fact that they insisted on playing Monty didn't seem like it was a good safety card ultimately. And Anderson kind of for his own impact was also super negligible. There was one round I remember where it's a CCTV defense. Monty and the rest of Cyclops clear rafters. They like all of rafters is completely set. They have one guy pushing up from red, so that's where their assault is coming from. Monty pushes all the way up to cache door. There are like holes and 2 people stuck inside cache unless you want to go to the red rotate. So he's in the doorway. He gets smoked off, but he doesn't get smoked off completely, only to the point where he would have to back up a little bit away from the door. Where does he go? Hard right away from cache door. Now it's completely open, and the guy who's planting default just died to a nitro cell because someone hucked it from green box. Like, the positioning and the awareness, the decision making on CAG at this point was shot. It was dead. There was not like anything that seemed like it was very solid. They looked like they were out of it. The fact that Glaz was even brought, like, CAG got a 3K off one person playing Glaz and still lost. Like, Furia had their number as the game progressed the whole way. And I don't know where you put CAG's like mindset at that point. I don't know if they were like, oh, it's Furia, we weren't planning on winning anyway. Like, that's a dumb mindset if true. I hope it's not. I don't want it to be. But it looked like they simply weren't playing with their hearts in it. I don't want the fact that Monty is their primary safety pick to be like ultimately a handicap for them. I want there to be success if you're going to keep on bringing that up over and over again. But in 3 games, 2 of them you were able to play Monty and you didn't find any success. And Furia, I didn't even peg as being a top LATAM team, and they made these guys look like a bunch of North American T4 players who just formed a team the other night. Like, it wasn't impressive to me at all.
Yeah, I went and counted. I've auto-reviewed 11 maps total for Cyclops ahead of SI. Again, more than almost any other team, just because of the bracket and how they ended up playing in the APAC playoffs. And, you know, the first thing I think that there's to note about this team definitely is the weird operators that play on attack. We've covered that, but their mental, I think, is a big deal. And it's something that I wrote a couple of different notes about, where it seems like I was noticing when they get out of it, when they really start doubting themselves, they get down on themselves, they start playing more and more passive on that defense, which I just don't think fits their playstyle. Doesn't fit what type of team they are. And so I wasn't like a huge fan of that. You said that their mental might have been shocked. I mean, it's hard to not lose your mental when you're going down 7-1, right?
Seriously.
I don't know if that was one of their issues. They started on attack, so you know, maybe that didn't really come into play, but it did feel like they were really inconsistent, and it felt like that inconsistency came from the fact that they just mentally weren't a strong team in the same way that, you know, Furia, actually, of the teams that I watched today, were probably the strongest team mentally. Again, even in their loss, they were having fun. You know, they were having a good time, and so I think that's probably a huge deal for CAG. And those two, you know, those 2 big downsides combined kind of make me think that they won't get last in this group. I feel like a team that is kind of swingy with, you know, with their wins and their losses, and has so many unpredictable plays. I feel like there's just no way this team goes 0-9
and can keep a good mental the whole time, seemingly. Yeah,
like they don't have to get a good mental on all 3 days. They just got to get a good mental once, right? The way these groups are laid out, you know, 90% of the teams are going to move on to the bracket. I think CAG will have at least one good day where they can push themselves into that top 90%. But yeah, today wasn't that day, and that's unfortunate for the Japanese.
Nah, I was confused looking at what they were running, and I was like, I know that the APAC playstyle works in a specific way in that region because it's just how you work. I understand that. And I know that APAC doesn't need to play nearly as structured as regions like NA in Europe, because that's kind of where the standard was set, and you want to find a way to break out and do your own thing and find success that goes against the grain of what everyone else is doing. But so far, the translation for teams that came from Asia to play in the Invitational thus far, through just the first day, didn't translate very well. The only time an Asian team won today was against another Asian team, and that kind of already sets the bar pretty low for what the expectations can be. I hope Giants tomorrow for Group B do something different, but ultimately for what we saw for these two, for Cloud9 and for Cyclops, it was very underwhelming overall.
Yeah, I will say, I think even for APAC, Cyclops are a weird team. I don't think Cyclops are a good representation of the whole of APAC. I think Cloud9's a better representation of sort of like what peak APAC looks like, which I still think has a lot of problems. But you know, Cyclops are very much a weird team. We'll talk about tomorrow, but Giants are the only team I predict to go 0 wins in their group. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Post that, we had the game I was most excited for all day long.
Yeah.
North America versus Europe. And this one, I got trolled, dude. The
How'd you
game
get trolled?
started. Well, the game started right. We were in the post. We were in like the in between the second last game and the last game.
Yeah.
And it's a thunderstorm outside, and my power goes out. So I'm like,
No.
no way. I'm about to miss BDS versus DarkZero.
Come on.
I
When
missed
did it
the
come
first.
back?
I missed the first 3 rounds. I managed to take good notes, and I kind of came back halfway through the third round, so I didn't really get notes on the third round. But I watched rounds 4 through 15. This one did go all 15 rounds, and it was a fun game. It was a really fun game. I think overall, BDS played better. BDS were the better team throughout the majority of this game, at least the rounds I saw. There was one round that we kept coming back to. It was round 6. DarkZero win it. Skies is in the 1v4 with the worst gun in the game. And if we can get this clip, it is one of the nuttiest plays I've seen. Thank you, because this is like...
Absolutely got this one.
Is the only reason DarkZero even make it to overtime, right? It's earlier in the game, but if they don't clutch this ridiculous play, and we can play it whenever it's ready, then they would even just lose it. They would lose it 7-5, right? So
yep,
this is this is one of the most hype things that I think we watched all day. If we can get it to run.
Yep, there we go. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so again, he's in the 1v4. Sky's got the UMP. Gets the swing. He's going to swing again for number 2, and then it's going to slow down a little bit, and 10 seconds on that clock. What he does, he just prones behind the soft wall, and they have no idea where he went. They're like, wait, what? What's he doing? Gets this kill, because Shiro doesn't realize what's happening, and then nutty shot here. Shaiko's shaking, you can tell, and finishes it off for the 1v4.
He just ducks.
Yeah, he's...
That's such a debate.
This guy's kind of nasty.
Oh, so, Alex, you're dirty, man.
So far, that's the best play that any North American player has made at the 6 Invitational. Still early, of course, only day 1. And like you can see, DarkZero aren't like super happy about that. Like Mint's not too thrilled. And again, I think that BDS were playing better this game, and I think DarkZero knew it. Particularly when we got to that second half, on the bar defenses, they just couldn't deal with Clash, right? There was 3 bar defenses in a row, including overtime. Not in a row, but there were 3 bar defenses from BDS, including overtime, where they won it every single time. They rocked to Clash every single time. DarkZero tried so many different things. First, they tried just attacking you head on, didn't work. Then they got on the cocktail windows, right? Try to pinch it. You got slammed by a Maestro. Then you tried getting down below, right? You deal with the Maestro, but still, the Monty beats you. There was one really annoying play, annoying as an NA fan, where Hyper's like walking up white stairs, and he's like stunned the Clash. He's got it, right? He will win this 1v1 against the Clash, guaranteed. And then a Habana on the white hall window flashes Hyper, and Hyper has to run back because he can't see it. Devastating, dude. It was a heartbreaker. They managed to go all 15 rounds, of course, and 15th round was it was the first time that BDS rocked the Clash outside of the bar hold, so they went reading. Reading was another round that BDS had previously gone undefeated on, but they had done more like heavy drone denial roams. They bring out the Clash this time around, and it's the first round in this game that DarkZero bring out the Blitz. It felt like a desperation play. It felt like a meme. That last round was sort of maybe the worst round that DarkZero played all game long. They took top floor pretty slowly. It took them like 2 minutes to take top floor. I think they traded 1 for 1. No, they took it okay. I don't know the exact time, but they took it with the Blitz. They didn't have a sledge that whole time because they swapped out the sledge for the Blitz. So top floor wasn't really utilized that great. And then 4 players drop Laundry Hatch, attacking onto Reading. And that's an X-set play if I've ever seen one. That's one that they've specifically gone for against TSM. I remember that game, and they try to replicate it on DarkZero. I get it. You're trying to make the shock play, but in hindsight, from a third-person point of view, when we've got all the intel, it was a awful play, and they went for it.
My blood was boiling when I was seeing that it really just came down to how you were 1v1ing or interacting with a Clash in overtime. I know that you're going to do whatever it takes to win, but the way that DZ had been playing that game up until that point was still relatively clean. And then you bring the Clash, it goes to max point, and I'm just sitting there going, if I am DarkZero, I am fucking pissed. That it was just a shield up, and that's what stood between you and winning. That sucks, man.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. DarkZero did still play well. I'm saying the BDS played better, but playing better than BDS.
Credit where credit is due. It was still 8-7.
Yeah, and playing better than BDS is a pretty high bar to set. I still think DarkZero played really well. I still think DarkZero Let me look at the scoreboard one more time, or look at the leaderboard one more time before I say this. I still think DarkZero probably finished this group top 4. It's close. It's close. We'll see how they do. But I think they lost to 2 other teams that I anticipate to finish in the top 4. Nice that we've got the standings up. Thank you very much, Fermi. Incredible work here. Yeah. But I anticipate that DarkZero will still finish relatively well. They still played decent against BDS, but I remember that very first round 7, BDS brought out the Clash, and I was talking with Jobro, and Jobro was like, "Oh, this is a mistake. If anybody knows how to play against the Clash from North America, it's DarkZero. They're the Shield team. They're gonna counter this." Lost every round against the Shield, and just weren't having a good time with it.
Never make assumptions, dude. Seriously.
Yeah.
Especially in an invite capacity where people are going to pull out the Gigabrain stuff if it means having a chance of winning still.
Yeah.
That does blow. That blows. Yeah. DZ, overall, I think that's a pretty darn good performance. I think we can kind of do like a standings roundup once we get to this last game. Yeah. And this one I didn't take too many crazy notes on because we were trying to set up the show for the first time. This was the last game of the day. And this was, surprisingly, the one that had one of the most, blowout kind of score lines overall, 7-2. The overall worst game of the day was Furia beating CAG, and this was the second worst score line for any team. This is FaZe beating G2 7-2 on Oregon. I thought this was interesting because G2 banned Oregon every time. They banned it 11 times. They played it 0 times in the past 3 months, and that includes GSA. They didn't do it in EUL, they didn't do it in GSA, they did it nowhere. Wow. This is a map they simply do not go to for any reason when it comes down to it. That scoreline is pretty damn worrying. And I don't even necessarily mean that because it's a map that we've never seen G2 play for a very long span. I also mean that because look at the ratings. Everyone aside from Kanto was off their game completely. That's never a good sign. Kanto, I don't know. I don't even know how he managed to pull out that. Sorry, I actually do. He had a 4K on round 1, and that kind of carried him the rest of the way because he played Ash Yeager. So he already had some momentum on his side. And it seemed like it was a close game. It was 2-2 at one point, and then it was just a skid, and G2 didn't do anything on their own second half. And it looked bad after 4 rounds. You can already tell there's a very definite shift, and G2 simply don't have a counter. Souls is acing when FaZe is down 3-5, and everything just kind of seems like it's in the gutter at this point. I didn't take anything super extensive on this game other than the fact that this now does put G2 at the exact same place as CAG overall from a records point of view with no points. They are 0-3 on the day. They won 15 rounds, but not where I wanted them to be. For a team I think had a relative chance of probably making an upper bracket attempt through groups, oh my God, how are they 0-3? Now, granted, they did have 2 overtime losses today, which means that they were still keeping games. I think a couple of mistakes here or there, but it was nothing major. You can kind of shake off an overtime loss as being just 1 or 2 things, but in this case, it was a combination of a lot of things. It was probably mental, it was gunplay. They just didn't seem like they were in the zone, and they went to Oregon, which we just don't see them on, which means I didn't have confidence in them going into this map. I was hoping they were saving something, and if they did, they simply didn't show it today. So they took the L, and FaZe looked like monsters when I didn't think they would.
I think I have 2 big thoughts on this game. First of all, again, I didn't watch it, but looking at the round distribution, G2 got a 2-4 attacking half, for the first half, which is okay, that's what you expect on Oregon, 4-2. And then they went 0-3 on defense, and so that's a huge red flag. Again, Oregon is the most defender-sided map in the entire pool. That's something where you really expect the defense to do well. 0-3 means presumably they tried laundry dorms and then repeated one of those. I would guess maybe they went meeting, maybe went dining. In either case, they expect a round somewhere in there, so that's worrying. And then the second thought I have just about G2 in general is we did a little bit of a Q&A just at the end, me and Joe of our stream, and one of the questions that was asked by Austin Rohde, one of the tweeters, or
the Roadster.
The Roadster, indeed. Yes, who is the most overrated team in Rainbow Six? And Joe's answer was G2. And wow. I agree. I think that this is a team that going into before SI, I anticipate this team could make top 4. Absolutely. I thought they would be an underdog. They'd be pushing for it. And then I went back and I looked at my notes for EUL, and I don't know if I wrote a single positive note about them. I think in my head they're I've got them as a really good team in my head. But I looked back at my notes before SI started to make my predictions, and I realized like I don't have very many things I like about G2, and I've got a pretty considerable list of things I don't like about G2. So yeah, I don't know. G2, maybe we're all kind of overhyping them. I don't know. Sad to say because it's G2, but I think this is a team that very realistically could drop out in Group A. I don't think they will. They're not my pick still, but they're gonna be bottom 3, guaranteed.
I don't think they will either, for what it's worth, and that's not even because of CAG's performance overall. They still did have 2 games in OT that came down to things that I think are probably correctable with a short span of time, and I think if anyone's going to understand what went wrong, it's going to be Shas and those boys to kind of have some sort of resolution. So on G2's part, I don't think they're dead in the water ultimately, but for me, if we can get standings back up real quick just to kind of get a picture of where everyone else is, we kind of focus on like the teams that were really good and the teams that were really bad. So top 4 as it stands, Empire, Liquid, BDS 1 theoretically could stay that way if I'm real. Team 1 surprised, Empire surprised, but at this point I'm kind of cool with reverting my thought on Empire from really worrying in the EUL to, oh, okay, no, I guess you've got your stuff figured out. It's the Russian machine on land, they're back. But for everybody else, it's Liquid and BDS I absolutely expected to be this high. Team 1 I did not think would be. I kind of thought FaZe or DZ might be in that position. I don't know. What were you thinking after day 1?
After day 1, I mean, I think Team Liquid and BDS were my top 2. I think out of this group. Actually, I think I had BDS, DarkZero in my top 2. I think Team Liquid was top 4.
Okay.
I thought FaZe Clan would do really well. They did do pretty good for their first day. You know, it's hard just looking at standings when we only have 1 play day. You know, I think that some teams have had really, really tough games. Some teams have really easy games. And I think one thing, maybe if you're listening to us, you might think, okay, Team Empire, they went 3-0, but what if they just had a really easy schedule? Yeah, no, they played Team Liquid, they played BDS, and they played Team 1. Those are the next 3 teams on the scoreboard. I mean, I would argue Team Empire had the hardest schedule of any team for the first day. And they're 100% the real deal. I'm anticipating Empire finish first right now. I don't see how they fall down unless Joystick uninstalls the game and quits. I don't think Empire can drop below first. I mean, they can obviously, but I don't think they will. And farther than that, I think teams have broadly fallen where I expected. I thought DarkZero would do a lot better than they have. That's NA bias for you. That's
never gonna lose that from us. Yeah, it's true.
No, I mean, and that's not necessarily me thinking DarkZero would do well because I like DarkZero. That's me thinking DarkZero will do well because I've got a very NA focused brain, and I learned the meta watching North America. I believe NA is sort of the best way to play the game, and that's a bias, and I can admit that, but I can't really get rid of that. So, yeah, a little shocked for me to see DarkZero solo. That's probably the biggest surprise in my mind.
And for me as well, it's also just worth restating that DZ, being the only NA team here, find themselves at a pretty damn significant disadvantage because they can't play anybody who they've played in the NAL before. And looking ahead for them at their next couple of games is Empire 1 and Liquid all happening in 2 days' time. And those 3 so far already are proving that they're a force to be reckoned with just based on how their first 3 games have gone. So it's only an uphill climb for DarkZero, for those of us who are hoping that they're not going to get knocked out in this group. It just means that things are really only going to get harder and harder from here. I think the sad part about this is APAC ultimately will be the region that falls by the wayside in both Cloud9 and Cyclops. I think Cloud9 is more redeemable than CAG overall, just because they seem like they showed flashes of more adaptability and can find ways around their way of working the meta and maybe doing something else that another region wouldn't expect, maybe pulling out a map win here or there. But after that first day, I was like, I root for the underdogs ultimately, and Cloud9 just didn't have enough to impress me aside from the one game that they won, which again was against another APAC squad. So just from a confidence point of view, I don't really have a reason to think that they'll progress very far. But if it had to be the team that goes out, if we had to make a call right now after 1 day, which is ludicrous, and you shouldn't listen to us, but if we had to make a call about who's going on day 1, is there enough evidence at this point to suggest it will be Cyclops?
No. I think I stick with my original prediction on who's gonna be the biggest loser.
Which was who again?
Cloud9. Cloud9 were my pick to be eliminated in this game, or in this group.
Okay.
Again, I just think, APAC as a whole, I think throughout Siege's lifespan, APAC has gotten better each year, right? We've seen that year after year, APAC gets better and better and better. COVID hit, APAC got worse. They
True.
took I would argue they took a year or so step backwards. And when we get more in international lands, I fully expect them to start making progress in the right direction again. And one day APAC will be a viable region. I have no doubt in my mind that day is not today. I think APAC are struggling. Again, I give CAG the benefit of the doubt over Cloud9 because Cloud9 seemed like a bad team, but Cyclops look like a bad team with some surprises. And I anticipate in a round robin best of one format, surprises will be enough. But it's up in the air still. And I think there are other teams as well that could fall down there. I do think G2 looked worryingly bad, but we'll see.
For us, considering APAC to be the place where strats are born and where gigabrain stuff comes out of the woodworks that eventually makes its way over to other regions, you'd hope that one of those teams is able to do something. Like, again, I keep rooting for the underdogs because I want them to do well.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, Latin America came to play today, and so did Russia.
Yeah. I will say, if we had like every team attending this SI back 3 months ago when they still had Diesel, Wildcard were in my top 8. I liked Wildcard a lot.
Genuinely? Okay.
Yeah, I thought Wildcard were the best team in APAC. Just they hadn't played any of the APAC South teams. Or they hadn't played any of the APAC North teams at the time, so we didn't really know how they matched up. Since then, they lost their primary IGL, so this split's been really bad for them, and they can't even go to SI, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I think that's a big loss for APAC in my mind.
All right, well, we've been going for pretty considerable time at this point. It's been about an hour and a half. We had like that 20 minutes of start time, but still doing pretty good. So if we wanted to preview what the next day looked like in terms of, actually, here's a question. Do we want to, we're in Group A mindset right now. So do we want to kind of do like a look ahead at what Group A will look like 2 days from now, or do we want to look at Group B for tomorrow specifically? What do you think?
I think we'll hype up the people for tomorrow. I think that's going to be on most people's minds. I think we can sort of shift from Group A to Group B, and this can be like a nice transition.
Sounds good to me. Let's pull up the group stage bit for a minute in 2 seconds. This is the standings overall for right now. MIBR Makers, NIP Giants. Dude. Look at that. That's I know. Close. I can't believe how ferocious this group has been competing with one another. That's crazy.
And NA all bottom 4. Wow. That's tough.
All right, for a minute, I've actually got it pulled up here if you want to move back to the Wikipedia screen. Okay, skip ad, blah, blah, blah. Let's just make sure that this pauses. All right, so we haven't seen these guys today. It's going to be kind of interesting seeing a whole other host of teams play tomorrow that didn't have any screen time from today because we're so invested in what's happened over the course of the past 13 hours. However, we should look at these. So Group A, Giants, NIP, and then Parabellum Oxygen. We'll move through the rest of these. Space Station, TSM all play. We see the debut of Makers. Unlike Group A, Group B's games are a little bit different because everyone in Group A is still here, and all of them play 3 games per day. But in this case, it's a little bit different on the part of Group B. I think Parabellum plays 2, MIBR plays 2, Giants play 2, SSG played 2, and I think everyone else plays 3. So
Oxygen plays 2.
Oxygen plays 2, TSM plays 3. Yeah. So we're just looking. We're looking at a scenario where it's not nearly as balanced for teams that are in Group B, just in terms of how many they play per day. But ultimately, I don't really know if that's going to like have much impact on whether they'll perform more because they're playing more games. Because if everyone from Group A is playing 3 games per day, then it shouldn't really make a difference. However, we're starting out with a stinker, Giants NIP. If we had to give like flash predictions and like keeping it to one short sentence per prediction, let's just kind of run these down in mock order. Giants and NIP. What do you think?
I think both these teams are very overhyped, and I think NIP come out on top.
I also think Giants are overhyped, and I think NIP is just going to clock them because it's Latin America against Asia. Should be pretty self-explanatory. Okay. Parabellum Oxygen, I think, is an OXG win, ultimately. That's an OXG team. It's very hot after stage 1, and Parabellum are still figuring some things out from CL. This is OXG in my mind.
Yeah, Parabellum are the best team. Going to SI, I will never not support them. Oxygen win this game.
Good call. I approve of that. MIBR, TSM. You go first.
I think TSM are the favorites. MIBR are a good team, but I think TSM will do better on LAN.
I am inclined to believe the same, but after MIBR and their run all the way through Copa Elite 6 and Brazil, and the fact that TSM look a little bit down, this is kind of 50-50. I think MIBR could do this one. This could be an upset for them, in my opinion. Call me crazy. But we'll see.
Fair enough.
Parabellum Makers is happening. This game is happening day 2. Like, come on. The 2 teams that were not expected to be here in the slide, this is happening day 2. What do you think?
Again, Parabellum should go undefeated in this group stage and win the entire finals. This should be a very easy game for them. I'm going to say Makers.
Okay, but genuinely, how close do you think this one's going to be? Of like the 2 underdog qual teams that we weren't thinking were ever going to be at a world championship. Like, how close?
I really want Parabellum to do well. I don't think they will. I think Makers have looked
Same.
like you're comparing
Same.
Makers in their tier 3 leagues versus Parabellum in their tier 2 leagues. Like, I don't know, dude. What's the strength of the Italian league versus the Canadian like Challenger league? Like, you know,
That's
when
a good
Parabellum
point.
have made like a
don't
bunch
know.
of roster moves. Like, I don't know. Probably Makers will do better, but that's a crapshoot as far as I'm concerned. Who knows?
Yeah. I will go Makers simply because they seem a little bit more well put together, and PB are still figuring some things out because they had to move some people in for CL. So yeah, in my mind, it's Makers. I love the PB guys, but dude, oh my god, I don't like you. Just look so confused right now.
Yeah.
SSG TSM. This is one I love. And I think TSM, even though it's like Canadians coming back and all that stuff is something to consider, TSM for me is still a stronger team overall in my head.
I made these predictions last night, and I did every single game, and so I had to check what I actually picked because I didn't remember. This is a close one. I did go for TSM, and I'll back that up. I think TSM take it.
Okay. Moving to NIP Makers, this one I don't know that much about because this would be the first time Makers are facing an actual T1 team in the Invitational. I'm inclined to go NIP simply based on previous experience, but that might not stack up if Makers come out of the gate swinging. So,
all right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, like I look at this game, I know nothing about Makers, like legitimately 0 games that I've watched them in the past 3 months. And a lot of what I've watched from NIP, I have not been a fan of. So I'll take the team I don't know versus the team that I know is not amazing. So I'll take Makers. Might be a troll pick, but that's
again, it's literally a case of we simply have not watched that much of Makers at this point, so it's a crapshoot either way, no matter what we go with. SSG Giants, I think, is also pretty explanatory because that is Canadian coming back, and they should roll Giants. Like if Asia played how Asia played today, it should be the same case here.
Yeah, Luke didn't die, so that Space Station would lose to the Giants. That should be an SSG game.
Our Lord and Savior Luke, thank you for your service in the NAL. OXGM IBR, what do you think?
Oh, I can't not pick Oxygen there. Come on. Again, I think MIBR are a good team. I think they'll do well in the group, but I gotta go Oxygen. Come on.
Yeah, MIBR had a really good run in Copa, but ultimately OXG seemed like they're the hotter squad. I want my boys Yaga and Kino to just take us all the way to a victory with OXG. That'd be great. Last game of the day, TSM Makers. This is probably the most intriguing matchup of the whole day, simply because of who's involved. I'm going to say TSM, but do Makers do stupid things? I want to find out so bad.
Is there like something I'm not getting? Like TSM, what? How is this even an interesting game?
It's intriguing solely based on Makers' mystery factor, and I think that can be said for a lot of what they're going to end up doing because they had a hot streak in the EUL qualifier. The momentum has considerably died off since then because it's been so long ago. I like the idea that a team that is literally the perfect definition of a question mark in this competition could do something crazy, but against TSM, I will put faith in the team that I've seen do well before. So
fair enough. Yeah.
This is about to be ridiculous. I have no idea what we're doing with Makers, dude.
I'm excited. Makers also, due to how the schedule works in Group B, every team has 2 playdays where they play 2 games and 1 playday where they play 3 games.
Okay,
Except for Makers. Makers have 2 playdays where they play 3 games and 1 playday where they play 1 game. I don't know if that's going to have a huge impact. They played Giants, and that's their only match on playday 2. Well, that's playday 4 overall, playday 2 for Group B. So, kind of something interesting I saw and I wanted to bring up. But, yeah.
All right, Chad, it's your time now. We got a little bit more time. We'll go through and answer some questions. If you've got something, this is your opportunity to interact with the freaking stream and also be on YouTube later at some point down the road. So if you've got something that's a burning question that you wanted to ask us, maybe it was from earlier over stream over the past hour and a half that we missed for some reason. If there are any questions, will you marry me? No. Social distancing. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the way it goes.
Yeah.
Why do you think Hyper hasn't performed as well?
How did Hyper do today overall? Let me pull up the general stats and we'll see how he did.
He was on the lower end from what I remember in that final game against BDS.
Yeah.
Definitely
overall,
wasn't a standout.
0.96 rating, 24 and 25, 2-2 on entry, 63% headshot, 61% cost. He was playing Zof Mozzie most of the day.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which is fourth place for all of DZ, just for reference.
Right. I'm not sure why Hyper's doing bad. That's kind of a terrible answer, but he's noticeably worse than he was last year, at least in terms of the stats. I think maybe it is just it is changing a partner on that roam. He goes from whoever he was like roaming with. It was a lot of like kind of solo plays from him, directed with like intel and stuff before. They really did set him up to make a bunch of solo plays, and now he's sort of more working with NJR. Maybe they're still kind of working on that coordination between the two and converting for more of a team rather than like a team that one or two players kind of focus on getting all the kills. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't think there's an easy answer to that one.
Yeah, so if we pull it up, I actually have all of the ones from DZ. Skies was number 1 on the day, NJR, then Mint, then Hyper, then Eclipse. I actually had Eclipse tagged as a player to watch on DarkZero's side just because he was
good in the NAL.
He was very good in the NAL, especially on flank watch. But just in this case, this is Hyper stat line, and I would say that maybe it's just a matter of him getting like a day to kind of warm up some. We had the same question about him, I think, at the beginning of the NAL, was a point you and I talked about a little bit for stage 1, where he simply he had a couple of off days and then surged back later in the season, kind of the same with NJR. Neither one of them really had a hot start. I don't want to say that's always conducive to what DarkZero does normally, but I would say it's there may or may not be a trend there, at least in Hyper's case.
Fair enough. I think I found that question. Do you want to find the next?
I can find the next question. Chat, give me something good as I switch back to this stream. Let's see. Do you think Empire can continue this hot streak for the rest of SI? Okay, so they had a really bad performance ultimately in 2020 because they weren't able to make it out of groups. They lost to Fnatic. They lost to, I believe it was it DarkZero? I think it was. This is, again, 15 months ago. But on LAN, Empire is always been a better team that they have been online. They won the November major, which obviously is a really good sign. But they're coming into SI having been 8th place in stage 1 for Europe. And my confidence in them was not very high. The fact that they're undefeated and undefeated in the way that they are, beating Liquid, my favorite team from Latin America in this tournament, beating BDS in 8-7 overtime fashion, and then beating Team 1, who had a very strong showing, which was more surprising than I thought it was going to, is already a very good precursor to them continuing to do well as the rest of the groups go on. So I think Jesse probably hit it on the head earlier. I think they make upper bracket. Whether they stay in first place, I don't think is a guarantee, but at this point, with 3 straight wins against those specific teams and the rest of their schedule being considerably easier, I think they're a shoo-in for upper bracket at this point. So I guess the answer is yes.
Yeah, I mean, Empire have to beat DarkZero, might be tough, but they should come out on top. They have to beat Cloud9, looked really bad day 1. G2 looked really bad day 1. CAG looked really bad day 1. FaZe, considerable opponent. Furia looked okay day 1, not amazing. So, like, I think Empire will probably drop a game or two, maybe, but like, there's very little chance that they drop out of upper bracket. I anticipate they'll get first, because if nothing else, like, their tough games are behind them. If they were gonna lose, they were gonna lose today. So yeah, I think I don't know that Empire are gonna be able to chain this success throughout every single day. I don't think they're gonna necessarily win the whole event right now, but I think that's viable, and only time will tell if they can actually convert this into a hammer.
Yep. Good points all around. What else we got?
Come here. Thoughts on the best of 1 format? Gonna go for that?
Ooh.
I gotta pick up Spawny.
I like the best of 1 format. I think
Really?
best of 1 is really cool, mostly for 2 reasons. First, we get to see more matchups per day, and it's team versus team, which from a viewership point of view, I do think is more exciting. And I think playing in a best of 1 format is ultimately more viewer friendly than it is competition friendly, and was also probably the best method of handling the fact that there were 20 teams going. Like, I don't really know how else you would have put that many teams together into one competition and sorted everything out, unless it was like some people didn't have to play for one whole stage, and then you're still able to have best of 3s, and we kind of do it in a similar way to like Counter-Strike does it with their majors. I like it. The thing that I have an issue with is the scoring and how it's not 3 points relegation win, 2 points overtime win, 1 point overtime loss, and the fact that you losing a game 8-7 in OT counts the exact same as you winning a game 7-0. An OT win and a regulation win are the exact same thing. And to me, if we're basing this off scoring, like the fact that we even have points in my mind is kind of useless. It's just because it just matters to how many games you win overall, and there's no delineation between overtime and reg. Yeah, that's the only gripe I have.
Yeah, I think I agree with your gripe. I feel like it's just like, it doesn't even change anything if you just change the scoring, right? It just literally makes it more fair for no downside at all. So, yeah, I think that definitely if you're doing round robin best of 1, you should have overtime wins count for less, right? 2 points and 1 point, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, that's true. And also to just point out, all of the overtime games have been highlighted down in the bottom bar, and that's 4 in the first day already. Yeah. And the fact that G2 had 2 of those to start with, like they're 0-3. Like that loss to FaZe, I think, is kind of deserved because of the way that they played. But 2 of those losses, they were so close, and they just fell short at the very final hurdle despite having a good performance up until that point. And they're now all of a sudden having the exact same point value as CAG. I'm not really a fan of that.
Yeah,
that's a pain.
All right. Do you want to pick the next one?
Yeah, let me search. Who we got? Gotta find odds Jesse pulls up for the watch party tomorrow. Probably not, Carter. If I had to guess, he's gonna go off and do his own thing. We'll have our own watch party.
Yeah, well, you see, I would join the watch party, but I'm gonna be live at twitch.tv/JessieJChick watching the B stream with some of the best minds in North America. Tomorrow we're actually watching the streams with the Mango Ya of Disrupt Gaming, their head support staff. He was standing behind them all stage, and he's not Red Cube. He is the actual analyst, and so we're gonna pick his brain during that the stream. So I won't be able to watch the watch party, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was gonna be good. Let me get it like an actual better question. That wasn't just you self promoting, you absolute shill. We had. Do you think a Brazilian final is happening?
All Brazilian?
I
don't think it's likely. I think it's possible.
It is possible, though. If we look at groups, let me see if I need to be the one to pull this up, or if Ferme can do it. Oh yeah, Ferme, can we go to standings for Group A real quick and see how many LATAM teams we've got there, and then we'll swap to Group B and we'll just figure out how this all works. So it's Liquid, Team 1, Furia, FaZe Clan. That's 4 Latin American teams. And then if we switch to Group B, that should be the other 2, and it should be NIP and MIBR, if I'm remembering right. Yep. So what that means is when we end up going to the playoffs, then some of those teams will end up being matched up against one another in both the upper bracket and the lower bracket, and it will ultimately come down to seeding. So in a lot of cases, the guys who place within the upper bracket for Group A, if it's mostly Latin American teams, then they wouldn't be facing a whole bunch of Latin American teams in Group B, because that's where you mix up Groups A and B for playoffs, because you didn't play any of them in the group stage, so they will then start to face each other. Ultimately, I think it comes down to how many of them take each other out of the whole tournament, how many of them eliminate one another. That will ultimately be determined by seeding, and if they go upper or lower bracket, if they're if they have a chance to make it all the way to the grand final with a 1 map advantage, or if they're playing with only 1 life left. But because of how ferocious Brazil has been as a region and how hyper competitive it's been, by comparison to the rest of the esports landscape in Siege, they are going to be tearing each other limb from limb when we get to best of 3s and playoffs. And that's just kind of to be expected because of how close their own region is. I do think some of them will be knocking some of them out, but I do think after 1 game, it's 1 day, it's far too early to tell if that's about to be on the cards.
Yeah, I think Liquid, 1, FaZe Clan, and MIBR are all viable picks for making the finals. I think those are all in the cards. I think there's still a lot more teams that I would include on that list that aren't Brazilian. But yeah, I think it's possible. I wouldn't bet on it, but I think there's enough. Brazil has a lot of talent, right? Brazil's deep. And I don't think like Europe cannot say the same thing. I don't think NA has the same claim to depth as LATAM has. So I think it's just does the top of Brazil stack up to the top of the other regions of Europe and North America? I think if they do, then I think Brazil might be the most likely region to get 2 teams rather than just one in the finals.
You want to get one this time?
Sure. Let me see.
Kino or Alamo? If I had to pick Alamo, but I love Kino.
I'm picking Kino just for the NA bias, but Alamo's
There
nuts.
you go. There you go.
Why does Jesse think NIP are so overrated? What changed from last SI to now? So I don't know if I have a great answer to this one either, because I wasn't consistently watching NIP for the over the last year, right? Because we didn't have international events, I wasn't really focused on like breaking down the Brazilian scene. But I know that like NIP last year were pretty creative. They were super mechanically skilled. I think they still got a lot of that, but like I think NIP these days just doesn't know how to push. I really hate the way that they attack. I think mentally this team can get inside their own heads. I think that even their best players, like I think Psycho's a great mechanically player. I think sometimes on attack he makes some terrible decisions. Their defenses are solid. I think they've got okay defenses. But from the games I've watched of NIP, which again largely do consist of the Copa Elite 6, so perhaps I'm just biased because they had a bad tournament. Totally possible. But in the games that I watched, I looked at their attacks and I thought these are like of a Challenger League level team. Like there's some real struggling going on here. I don't know why they've downgraded so much on their attacks. I don't know what happened there, but that's what I'm seeing from them right now.
I think for my part too, NIP was one of the only 2 teams that didn't make any roster changes before the start of stage 1. And a lot of teams that did were able to find very, very quick, very fast success after making those adjustments. And the biggest example obviously being FaZe, because they went #1 overall, but that was after cutting 4 players, bringing in the MIBR core and reuniting Cameraman with Astro. So there was already some good chemistry to be found there, and MIBR was a good performing team up until that point. But they didn't make any, they made massive adjustments and shot up. Team 1 had to kind of scrounge some things together, put the pieces together from players who were not signed anywhere, put all of them on a team. Black Dragons didn't find success doing the same thing. Liquid was very consistent. MIBR picked up the old Team 1 roster, so they were very consistent. They didn't make any adjustments, and it just kind of seemed like NIP weren't really adapting fast enough to everything that everyone else was doing at the same time. And yeah, it did kind of seem like a downgrade.
Can I pick up one more question? And
yes,
then I'm
please.
done.
Yeah.
Okay. This one's from Will May, who's a regular in my chat. Shout out to Will May.
Hey.
And he's asking, is Bob still their coach? I wanted to bring this up because this is something that I talked with Joe about. I talked with him about NIP, and one of his theories was that because Bob has moved from a coach to a manager, he was always kind of a manager. He never really like filled the roles that a coach filled. But they've gotten like a real coach since last SI that like actually helps them with strats and mentality and stuff like that. And I think there is a theory that perhaps like putting a real coach behind that team has sort of messed up their mojo, messed up their mentality, and actually like made them play worse. Whereas when they had Bob standing behind them on the bench, they were able to just sort of feel themselves a little bit more, if that makes sense. That's just a theory. I don't really have any data or analysis from watching their games to back that up. It's hard to do that with a coach, but that is something that Joe mentioned, that maybe that was a cause of NIP's struggles in recent times. Bob was hype.
I mean, yeah, that's true. Bob being a hype man, being like a mental coach, so to speak, rather than an actual strategic coach, was always kind of something that I know not a whole bunch of people knew that about him, but he's kind of been like the dad of that squad for a very long time. So he's a very bubbly guy to meet in person. I met him in Montreal last year. Wonderful dude.
Yeah.
Wonderful guy. There was one that I thought was good, but now I'm trying to go up and find it. Where are you?
Am I gonna bring hot and cold on for one of my streams? Stay tuned.
Hey, in your mind, will this SI have an asterisk next to its name because of the circumstances the tournament was held under? Yes and no. I don't think it will have nearly as much of an asterisk next to it as the Tokoname finals in season 10. Tokoname was a situation where we had 8 teams participating, but we had FaZe Clan and NIP, both of whom were not able to play with their firm 5-man rosters that qualified for that Pro League final. But the teams themselves were still there. We still qualified. We still had all 7 matchups, all 7 best of 3s were still at that tournament. In this case, obviously, Virtus.pro and Wildcard not being able to participate sucks because they earned the points they deserved to be here. They qualified fair and square. Yep. But they are completely gone rather than it being a case where they had to get other people in to fill in for those spots. I think it would have been an asterisk more specifically probably for Wildcard because Silex coming in for Diesel would have meant that team is completely different. Their results were obviously kind of poor because they didn't have their IGL and they had to mix a lot of things around. But for Virtus.pro, it wouldn't have been the same deal. But the fact that they're not competing at the tournament at all means that it's not going to impact the way that the rest of the teams need to play. They just have to nix their prep for those teams and they can still do well. Obviously, it's frustrating when you put that kind of prep together and you don't end up using it, but it's also not a case where it impacts the rest of like competitive integrity overall. So it's an asterisk simply because there are 2 teams that can't be there. But overall, those teams that would have been like in Group B playing against them, yeah, they're still going to be fine and continue to do them, and the rest of play simply isn't disrupted as a result. So that's kind of why I think everything from that point will still be okay.
Yeah, I think for me, like, some people aren't going to love this answer, but I think the asterisk gets applied when you can judge, and this is subjective, but when you can judge, there's a reasonable chance the winner would be different if circumstances were different. Yep. And wildcard VP not showing up, in my opinion, I don't believe there's a reasonable chance the winner of SI would be different if VP and Wildcard were attending. So that's why for me there's no significant asterisk on this. You know, note it. It's on the Wikipedia page. You can read about it. But overall, I don't think there's a significant asterisk on this tournament for that reason.
All right, let's get one more question in here, and then we will wrap up everything on the day because we've been going for right around 2 hours. We thought that it would be like an hour to 20 minutes or something, but I think 2 hours is probably for Group A days because we got so much stuff to cover. Probably a little bit of a better time frame. Let's get one more good question here.
Oh, here's a really good one actually. Mitosis is a well-known process where a single cell divides twice to produce 4 cells consisting of the original cells. The 4 daughter cells only have half the number of chromosomes of the parent cell. I thought that was a good question. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Red Paint, for that question.
I'm just, man, this shit's getting hijacked. Let me get something different in here. Fuck. Quick, what's the powerhouse of the cell? Go.
I don't know, dude. I'm a math major. I don't have to care about that shit.
He doesn't know what the powerhouse of the cell is. Chat, crucify him on Twitter later.
The battery, dude? Depends what type of cell, right?
The mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell.
Fuck, man. I didn't watch those Star Wars
That's the joke
movies.
is all this time. Yeah, even Quartz knows. Unreal. Rutra, you've asked this question over and over again. Which Brazilian player do you like more? If I had to answer honestly, because I'm biased, it's Kino because he's on OXG, but I've always been a massive fan of Astro on FaZe. So it's Astro from a longevity perspective, and it's Kino because he's in the NAL. What about you?
That's a tough one. I'm gonna say I have a team in mind. I don't know which one. Give me 1 second. So I want to look at a specific. I want to know who.
You're looking at. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up my notes here.
When am I getting a laptop? When Dezichu sends me the one that was on the desk in Paris today.
I saw that.
God, man, everyone had Predator laptops, and I still kill me, man.
It's okay, Jacob. One day. Probably not.
Everyone keeps saying that.
Let's be real.
You're not supposed to crush my hopes like that. Damn.
Oh, sorry. One day, Jacob. I think Lukid is probably my pick. I think Lukid's probably my favorite Latin American player. I really like that team.
Is there an individual stat that's based off of, or is that like team cohesion based on like how he plays?
No,
Something
that's
more specific.
definitely like I definitely think that they're probably my favorite Latin American team, and so I kind of just wanted to go back, look through my notes, see who stood out as like through the like the Copa Elite Sixes, like players that I noticed having great times, and yeah, Lukid is popping up a lot in my notes.
All right, here's the actual like question that I wanted to answer as the last time. Now that Troy is back for SI, do you think he will reconsider staying if SSG has a good turnout this invite? It's a little hard to say that because we don't know what the turn or what the record for SSG is going to be. But one thing I do think is worthwhile to state is Troy saying that he was going to retire because he didn't have the motivation, he was feeling very burnt out. I do believe only really tells part of the story, because I don't really think that a player retiring is, or like making a monumental decision like that is ever as simple as what is said publicly. So I do hope that what SSG is able to do with Canadian means that there are no more problems that like rear their ugly head. Whether that means Troy is coming back into like the exact same system that he used to play in before he left, or if the team has made a lot of changes in his absence. You know, like Fultz got moved into an IGL role when Luke was playing support, and they were trying to figure out what to do with him. This team with SSG probably isn't going to look the exact same as it used to, which is both a good thing because it means they can get counter-threated against, but also a bad thing because SSG were still a very good squad before Canadian decided he needed to retire. So I don't know how they're going to perform, and because I don't know how they're going to perform, I obviously can't say if they're going to, if he's going to decide to come back or not. SSG, for their own part, I think, could very well say, thanks, Troy, we appreciate you standing in for SI, even if they do well, but then they could decide to go with a free agent signing or buy someone else out of their contract. Like, there are things SSG could do down the road, but ultimately it depends on what their record for SI looks like, and I can't predict it because I don't know where Troy's going to slot back in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I don't know is the only correct way, or is the only way that I would want to answer that question, because I don't know what's going on in Troy's head. I don't think Troy knows necessarily what he wants to do yet. So I don't know. No idea, no frame of reference. Don't know.
We're gonna find out starting tomorrow, and then that'll just carry over for the rest of the next 2 weeks, and hopefully they make grand finals and win, because I would love to see them win back to back, because I'm biased and also nostalgic, and I miss Montreal from last year. Very, very much so. I miss Montreal.
Me too. Me too.
All right, that is kind of it for us for the day. That's it. Post show wrapped. Thank you very much for joining us for the inaugural episode. We're going to be back tomorrow at around the same time, because the games for tomorrow start considerably later than they did today, because there are less games that we have to get through overall. So the post show will be right around the same time. I don't think it won't be nearly as long, because there will be less games to go over just as a whole. But I think overall for first day, this went pretty damn well, and I was very happy with what we were able to scrounge together on short notice for this.
Yeah, no, thanks everybody for coming out. Jacob, thanks for all the work you put into this. Thanks again to Candor and Ferme for all the crazy work they put into this as well.
Thank the boys. They
went above
killed
and
it with
beyond.
these graphics, man.
Yeah, dude, I just showed up and talked shit about players and teams that were better than me. You guys are the real stars, so thank you so much.
Fair play. To answer a question for one of my mods, yes, I will put this on YouTube as fast as I can. As soon as the VOD is over, I will highlight it and try to shove it over to YouTube. So if for some reason you weren't able to catch all of this, it will be there. I will keep the Twitch VOD up for those who are interested in watching it here instead. But yeah, for Jesse and myself, thank you very much for showing up for post-show episode 1. We will be back tomorrow talking about Group B, and then for the rest of the Invitational. We'll see you tomorrow.